What's up guys, it's Matt from TDM Style here and welcome back to the channel for another hair product review, and this week we are finally here to talk about Arcadian Clay Pomade. So after endless questions about how does such and such thing compare to Arcadian and all the hype that I've been seeing around, I finally bought one for myself and I've been trying it out for a couple of weeks. And there are a bunch of things I really like about it, a couple things that I don't really like about it. So let's get right into it and start straight away with packaging. So the Arcadian Clay Pomade comes in this 4-ounce amber glass jar with a black aluminum lid. And I feel like this is a pretty common type of jar in the homebrew pomade world. And this one has this kind of dark gray matte label with the white font on the front, Arcadian Clay Pomade. It says firm hold, matte finish. Around one side, we've got the ingredients. It also says paraben and cruelty free. And around the other side, we have the directions. So the packaging is fine. It's nothing that like knocks my socks off or anything. I mean, like I said, it's a pretty common type of jar that we see around. The label is fine. I like the matte label. I like the kind of minimalistic looking fonts that they use. I like their logo, but you know, it's fine. It's a jar. Okay, next let's talk about the scent. And honestly, this is one of those things that I don't really like about it, but I'm kind of like on the fence. So when you open this and give it a smell, you will notice right away that the scent is very, very strong. I mean, it's not a bad scent. I like the scent. How I would describe it is, if you've seen Kai's review of this over at Kai Groomed, he called it like a Christmas spice scent, and I think he hit the nail on the head. That is exactly what popped into my head when I first smelled this. So lots of like cinnamon, nutmeg. It's just very warm, but it's very, very strong. So I like the scent, but for me, it's just too damn strong. I like to wear cologne, and this overpowers my cologne. I mean, I can smell it in my own hair like all day long. So I know that that's been a point of contention for a lot of people. Some people love it, some people hate it. Like I said, I'm on the fence. I like the scent itself, but I do think that it's way too strong. Next, let's take a quick look at the ingredients list. So looking at the list, you can see that water is in the first spot. So obviously this is a water-based clay. In the second spot, we've got kaolin clay, followed by microcrystalline wax. And then a few of the other things that I really picked out from this are that we've got sea clay in there. We have shea butter and vitamin E, both of which are very, very good for your hair and your scalp. And we also have some cocoa seed butter down near the end of the list. Now, looking at the consistency of the product itself and the scoop and the breakdown, this scoops out of the jar very, very soft, very creamy, and it breaks down the same way. It totally does not feel like what you would expect for a clay product, and that's totally fine. I mean, I very much like the consistency of it. I like how smooth and creamy and light it feels in the hands. Now, in terms of seeing how that creaminess and smoothness translates when applying it and actually styling it into the hair, I thought we would go that demo route again. So I'm gonna roll some footage of me actually styling my hair with this. So let's roll that and I'll be back with you guys in a minute. All right guys, so we're here with freshly cleaned and dried hair. I didn't pre-style with anything except for some 25 by the salon guy, just to, basically act as a detangler anti-frizz. So we're gonna go in with some Arcadian, and I do recommend that you follow the suggestion to work in small amounts and layer it in. So I'm gonna go with just a little fingertip amount here and start with that. So definitely, the first scoop applies very smoothly. I don't have any tug or pull right now. No problem whatsoever. It doesn't feel very grippy, so right now, if I were to just leave it at this one scoop, it would be like a really quite light hold. So I definitely am going to put in at least one more scoop. Going with another little fingertip amount here. So now I can feel the grip starting to set in. It's still pretty smooth, very little tug and pull. I don't really have that tangly feeling at the moment. And I really do quite like the texture that this provides. And also with it being water soluble, it does wash out very easily. It basically comes completely out with just water, which is nice. All right, so I am pretty happy with this. I don't want to go too heavy-handed. I feel like right now it's a pretty good medium firm amount of hold, and I think it will pick up a little bit once it totally dries and sets. All right, so as you can see there, it does apply to the hair nice and smooth, at least for the first 1 or 2 layers. I have noticed for me that if I need like a third small scoop or something, that grippiness does kind of build, and so it does get a little bit more difficult and a little bit more tuggy and pulley at that point, but it's nothing unbearable. What I find that's weird about this clay though, and which is the other thing that I don't like about it, is that while it applies and styles initially very smoothly with no issues, after it sets and it's been in my hair for a while, I think it has that kind of swelling effect on the hair, which I imagine would be great for those of you with finer hair. But for me, that just means that after it's set a while, if I go to restyle it or run my fingers through it or whatever, then I end up with that tangly, pulley, like tangly ends thing. Which is really unfortunate, because when I was first styling with this for the first time, I had really high hopes because of how smoothly it went in, and then the fact that that tangly ends thing set in later just struck me as a bit odd. But with that, I mean, that's a fairly minor issue. That aside, I do think that the finish is quite matte, which is nice. Even on day 2, it doesn't really get very oily at all. So I find that I barely need any dry shampoo or anything on day 2. I can just kind of re-style it and go. I did find that, as you would expect, if I wanted to add another layer in on day 2 to bump the hold back up, that was a bit of an issue for me with the whole tangly thing. And as far as the hold is concerned, they call it a firm hold, and if you actually follow the directions and you work in small amounts and you layer it in, I do think that you can build it up to a firm hold. Now, obviously, if you apply less, so if I just do 1 scoop, it's definitely a lighter, maybe medium type of hold, which I'm okay with. As you guys know by now, I'm a decent fan of medium holding products because I like my hair to maintain some movement. I don't like it to be just kind of glued into one place. So that's okay, but like I mentioned, you can make it a firmer hold if you layer it in. And as far as restyling it and longevity, the only issue I found was that minor tangly ends thing, but as far as actually reworking it, it doesn't really lose its shape. Of course, the hold will drop off after several hours, as most products do, as it kind of evaporates a little bit and like really sets in and totally dries. But it's nothing that was upsetting. I mean, it didn't like drop off tremendously or anything. It maintained a nice style throughout all of day 1 and actually held up pretty well on day 2, even if I didn't add in an additional layer. All right, so lastly, we can talk about price, and it is pretty cheap on the spectrum of clays. So you get 4 ounces for $15.95 US. And so, of course, factoring in the shipping, for me, shipping was like $4 and change, so it came to about $20 even for this 4-ounce jar, which I think is right around what we would expect for this type of product. All right, so overall thoughts. I do think that it's a good clay. I mean, I can kind of understand where all that hype comes from with this. I can see how this would be a good clay and work well for a lot of different people with a lot of different hair types. And like I mentioned, I do think it works pretty well. I really like the fact that it stays matte even on day 2. It doesn't really get oily. The hold is decent as long as you're layering it. I really like the texture it creates. But the 2 main gripes for me are, number 1, that scent is just too damn strong. If it was less in your face, I would be much happier about it so that it wouldn't clash with whatever cologne or other thing you might be wearing. Or if it was just, maybe a different scent, something a little bit lighter or fresher. It's just those spices and that warmth are like really aggressive. And as I mentioned, the delayed effect tangly ends thing as it sets and swells in the hair is a bit of a problem for me, and it does make restyling and day 2 styling a bit uncomfortable. But again, as with other products that have similar effects on me, I think that that is definitely to do with my thick, coarse, wavy hair type. So if you don't have the same hair type as I do, you might not have that problem. So do I like it? Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid clay. Is it my favorite? No, it's definitely not my least favorite either. So that does it for this review of Arcadian clay pomade, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you haven't yet clicked that subscribe button, please do so to keep up to date with all the upcoming content coming your way. And as always, thank you so much for coming by and watching, and we'll see you at the next one.